This programme is sponsored by Ava Media. Brilliant quality for a great price. It's the Thursday team's press conference ahead of the first ever GP2 weekend in Argentina. There's 6 team bosses at present, so let's go and introduce them. Starting off on the bottom row. On the left, we have James Willows, team boss of Alitalia Junior team. In the middle, we have Sean Grant, team boss of Sean Grant Motorsport. And on the right, we have Cameron Anderson, team boss of Netflix Motorsport. Now we'll go on the top row. On the left, we have Oliver Glazebrook, team boss of Etihad Young Drivers Program Grand Prix. In the middle, we have Matthew Orange, team boss of Orange Racing Junior. And on the right, we have George Rote, team boss of George Rote Motorsport Junior. So, I'm going to start off then with Sean Grant. So, Sean, you come out of testing with New Garden at the top. You'll be open this weekend. It's probably going to carry on.
I hope so, anyway. It looks good. He's had lots of pace in the Monza test. It was promising, quite consistent lap times. Usually they're more tense of each other, so if he qualifies well, he could maybe get a win in the future sprint race, maybe.
Indeed. So really, which one of those races do you think will be high results for you?
If we qualify well for the future race, there's definitely a big chance there. What I think about it is, it depends on where we qualify. If we qualify better for the sprint race, then obviously you've got a higher chance of getting results there, but it really depends on the qualifying. There's going to be a lot about that, really. Okay,
now, Oliver, so GP2 team now then, so we'll be interviewing you later on for Top Class, but going from testing, Magnussen finished 4th and Palmer finished 8th, but you have to say that it is very close between the top 5 from Monza, and it pretty much shows how close it's going to be, really.
Yeah, you also forgot Stoffel Vandoorne, who we're also classing as one of our own, of course, being out on loan at Steelers. So, yeah, we're pleased with general. All of the drivers we have under contract have done well. Palmer, a little bit off, but you can't say that. I mean, he was only 2 tenths down. The grid is incredibly tight. I mean, from 21st to 1st, it was covered by just under 6 tenths. A lot more competitive than F1. We don't mind if our drivers finish first or last, as long as they show good pace, good battling ability, and also good potential. This GP2 is going to be end-to-end. It's all about driver skill, and we just want to see that our drivers are capable of hitting the targets we set, which is going to be consistency, good clean driving, and just a general pace for these races.
Okay, so where do you think, judging from Monza, what sort of strengths do you think your drivers have?
I think if we're going to go through them all, I think consistency is very much, we had a starting one in where we was at Donington, which obviously failed, but they finished in pretty similar positions where they were. I mean, if Palmer, around about between 5th and 10th is where we'd want him to be. Magnussen within that top 4 bracket, and Vandoorne, top 2 is where he's going to be, because this is where we're expecting him to be, but consistency is where we're going to be key. I think keeping it on track is crucial. I think, building confidence, because GP2 is nowhere near as stressful as Formula 1. The stress on the drivers is going to be minimal. It's just really for them to show what their talents are. And, it's going well. It's only one test, though. You can't really look into it too deeply. I mean, the same way we had with Formula is with the top tier. We can't really be judging anything on practice, because only practice. I mean, in the last F1 race, things didn't go particularly well for the main team, but things happen, things change. New Garden might have a crash, might go out, and at the same time, someone like Connor Daly or Lima could move themselves straight up into first place. It's very tight there. It's all covered by very small margins. I believe, if I'm correct, that New Garden and Vandoorne at the top were covered by 6 thousandths. I mean, it's not really an overly impressive bracket, is it?
No. So now, George, testing for you didn't go very well indeed. You were slanging around in the midfield, Simona Di Silvestro being in last at the end of it. But are you really taking those performances from testing, or do you think they don't count?
Personally, even though that we were at the back, I wasn't really that concerned, to be honest, because the field was just simply so tight. I remember Silvestro was, I think, 0.9 off the top, so I'm not really that concerned, to be honest. I think the field is just very, very tight, so anything can happen in the first race or throughout the whole season.
Okay, so same question that I've asked to Ollie. Where do you think your driver's strengths are?
It's kind of tough, really, but I'd probably have to say consistency again, to be honest, because the lap times were around about the same, not too much different from each other, so I think that's all I have to really say on that matter.
Okay, now moving on to James. So, James, you come here looking probably confident, a bit split in mind. Haryanto finished third in testing, Galal only 20th. But do you think it's a positive or negative sign for your team?
Well, it's both, if you think about it. One, we're at the front of the field, and if you look at it again, we're at the back. So, it's more positive, I would have thought, because we're up with, like, Newgarden for battle for the lead, but then again, that's only one car in the points, because the other one's languishing for the battle for last.
Okay, so same question as the other two. Where do you think your strengths and weaknesses are for your drivers?
I can't say consistency, because the Donington test, the Haryanto and Goliath was a lot closer to each other, and more in the midfield than the next time. Haryanto was near top and bottom, so I don't really know. Probably more towards the fast track, like Monza, Spa, tracks like them.
Okay, now moving on to Cameron. So in testing, like the Alitalias, you had a split session. I mean, Coletti was 9th, Valsecchi was 16th. So, like with most of the teams, are you taking Monza as a bit of a way to see? Well, what I mean by that is, do you think Monza is a bit of pretty much how you think your drivers are going to cope in the season, or do you think that session didn't really count?
To be honest, I don't really think the session is going to count. I expected Valsecchi to be a bit closer to Coletti, especially in Donington. They were pretty much the opposite way around, with Coletti being down in 16th in Donington. I think they both have different tracks to suit them, and I don't really think that one's really suited Valsecchi much. But we'll see in the future races.
Okay, so you've already mentioned strengths and weaknesses then. So where I think the main question for you then is really, who do you think is going to be the better driver out of the two of them, or do you think you don't know?
Well, on paper it should be Valsecchi, being a former GP2 winner, and Coletti being a runner-up. I see them to be around the similar pace. If not, maybe Valsecchi should be a little bit quicker, but they should be kind of always together.
Okay, now Matt, your drivers had quite a good session, I'd say, 6th and 7th, Evans 6th, Rossi 7th. So, do you see that as a good positive then, going into the season, that your team might be a challenger in this?
Well, yeah, I see it as a great positive, to be honest. I mean, the fact that we're 6th and 7th and we're only like a 10th and a 10th and a half off shows how close the field is. So one weekend we'll be right at the top, maybe, and one weekend we'll be right at the bottom. It'll be so unpredictable, and it should make for good racing. But I'm just hoping for consistency, really. I mean, in the first Donington test, well, you can't really call it a test because we were there for like 5 minutes. We were at the top, well, near the top. And now we're sort of near the top again, but like the low end of the top 5. So we're just hoping for consistency and good racecraft from the drivers, and hopefully improving throughout the season.
Okay, so really then, where are the strengths and weaknesses for your two drivers then?
Strengths and weaknesses. I'd probably say consistency, like I've already said. I mean, they weren't both at the top and both at the bottom. They were both near enough the same sort of area on the leaderboard. So we're saying for consistency, and throughout the whole year, we're just trying to have a good time and get points on the board in most of the races. Maybe a few podiums now and then. And if we do that, then we should be set for a good year.
Indeed. So now going on to questions. This is to all of you. I will be asking the same question in the top class as well. So any of you who are going to be in the top class press comments, you can answer this again if you want. But what do you think of the Argentina track? So I'll start off in the same order then. So I'll start off with Sean.
Being honest, I haven't actually seen the track. I don't know what it's like.
Brilliant.
Wow.
As corners.
Well, it
And straight.
has a couple of long
straight,
corners,
no,
a
don't
couple
forget
of
the
short
straight.
corners, and a couple of straights.
I think my drivers are suited to straights coming from oval racing, so seems good for me.
And they're suited to corners as well.
Yeah, corners as well.
Yeah.
Ole.
I actually do know what the track looks like. You know, some of this, just showing that professionalism once again. It just seems to keep popping up. I mean, people keep stealing my word consistency. People just want to be us.
Your word.
Or breaking down.
Your word.
I
How
use
is that
the word.
your word?
No, I use the word consistency, and then it's strange how teams not popping up. Using the same word. I mean,
What are you aiming for?
use
I
your
don't know
own.
you're the five.
There was much
You need to have your own
consistency as
grammar.
Brazil, was there?
You need to have your own grammar. Come on.
Well, we aren't going to make
born
up
in the
our
same
own words.
To answer your
really.
question,
Just
Joe,
make up words.
to answer your question, Joe, it's a very. If I was going to have to describe it like a similar track, I would probably say it's a difficult one. Really, it's not exactly a high speed track. It's very mixed in its style. There's going to be some good overtaking opportunities, but once you get stuck in that, like say, middle sector, it's going to be difficult to overtake. I definitely think it's going to suit the cars with drivers who prefer the straight lines. Can go on, push down on every millimeter of power they have. But there's going to be some moments where I think strategy is going to come into play. It's definitely going to be one where tyre wear is going to be light. But the teams are going to have to have their own strategies and drivers depending. I think there's going to be a good mix here. Hopefully there'll be some decent overtakes, but I'm just hoping there'll be some decent racing.
Okay, George.
Having looked at the track, I have seen the track. I'll just mention that right now.
Good boy.
That it's not particularly fast track. It's quite twisty in the infield, so I don't know what it's going to be like again because the whole field is so close. So anything can happen. Really, my cars could be really quick at this one, and the next track they could be really slow. I don't know. It's very close. So see what happens.
Okay, James.
Well, the track is, it could be a mix of everything because you've got some fast sections, some slow sections. So it could suit some drivers, could suit others. Preferably not my drivers. So let's wait and see.
Okay.
That was an interesting
Cameron.
answer to the question.
Very insightful.
Basically, that's like a combination of what everyone else has said combined
Well,
into
I
one
didn't know
little
much
answer.
of the track before, but I watched the F1 race.
Before you
and
googled it.
No, I didn't. I
That's
watched
what
the
I'm
F1
doing now.
I watched the F1 race.
Hey Cameron, before you say I watched the F1 race, there's been an F1 race around there for years.
Yeah.
Can't
Well,
find it's not a commonly found thing on YouTube.
Well, I did,
don't think.
and I think it could suit our drivers being a lot of slow speed corners. I think will be particularly strong in the second sector if we're going to gain time anyway.
Just made that up on the fly.
Okay, I'm going to try Matt.
Right.
Matt, the track map up on Google right now. Just
Yeah,
looking
well,
at
for
it.
this track, we are. There's, as I can see here, there's quite a few straights. I mean, the whole of the first sector is mainly straights. What I've got here, so
Straight.
Couple corners.
yeah.
That's why the
I mean, there's not
second
really
sector
much I can say about this. Really, I don't really know the track. The middle sector is, like I say, very tight and twisty,
Yep,
so
see,
there'll be
I
room
know
for
my
overtaking there.
I said it first.
Just copied what Ollie said.
Mhm.
Whoa! I don't know what to say.
Talk about Cameron, not you, man. Cameron just copied what Ollie said about the second sector and made himself
the
sound
last
smart.
bit has a mixture of both, with the fact that they got a straight at the end and with some twisty corners as well. So we've got lots of overtaking places around here, and it should make for a good race.
Okay.
That was the answer you were looking for, Joe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, so this question is for Ollie, Matt, George,
Make it
and
easier.
James. So you four also have a top class team as well. So, really, are you going to be keeping an eye on the field and seeing maybe any of these drivers might be a potential driver for your top class lineup in the future? I'll start off with, I think we'll go with George for starters.
Well, so far, Ricardo and Verstappen have done a decent job, especially Ricardo. Verstappen is obviously quite young; he's still a teenager, so it's he still needs a bit of experience. But at the moment, I'm quite happy with my top two drivers. But we'll just see what happens for the next, for the season with Yellow and Silvestro to see if they can see what they can do.
Okay, Matt.
Well, I'm relatively pleased with my drivers, in particular Rosberg, getting a fourth in the first race and doing decent in the second race, moving up both times. Montoya's sort of been unlucky. I mean, qualifying second to last in the last race. I mean, he really should have saved his laps to the end, like most of the other drivers should, and waited until the track was dry. But we're just, well, Montoya needs to improve in terms of qualifying, and if he does, then we should have a good race for both of them.
Ollie?
The issue we have is the fact is we are one of the faster of the teams on the grid, so we aren't able to take risks with our drivers. We have to have two drivers who we believe can get the most out of the car. You know, we had issues when we was in Brazil. Obviously, they're being looked at and investigated into, but we have to use our knowledge of the sport. And really, I don't really think at this current moment in time anyone on the grid is worthy of a seat in our team. Hence why we had the young drivers program in the first place. You know, we've got two drivers in there who can prove their ability, and we've also got Stoffel Van Dorm who's out at Steelers. Maybe if someone impresses us, you know, we'd move them over we'd bring them in, put them in the young driver program, and shuffle around a few things. But yeah, I think it's too early to say in this tier what we're going to do and how people are going to say. As well as I think the other bosses, when they say their drivers, they can be pleased. I mean, there's only been 2 races. At the end of the day, you know, let's get halfway through the season first before we start saying we're pleased with people. Because, I mean, Matt, for example, can say he's pleased with Montoya and Rosberg, but how long until he's going to kick them out like he did Cecil?
And Cameron.
Oh, bang, bang.
Cameron's getting pissy about his drivers being too
At least both
pace,
of our
yeah?
cars can finish the race.
Matt, am I not
Matt,
answer.
the shots have truly been
Wait.
fired.
If I'm still saying, I mean, 2 drivers didn't finish the race, but I'm still ahead of you in the constructors, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still better than Cameron's team.
But I make the
Just shows
racing interesting.
So much-
Yours
Yeah,
are boring.
alright.
Shit.
And finally, James.
I am looking at drivers, but he's only in my team, so that's it, really.
Okay. That's another
Quality answer,
response.
James.
Bloody hell,
Wells.
James. You're just-
Okay, so one final question then. Now, it's not going to be the same final question that I put for the top class. It's going to be a different one, actually. Where do you think which race out of the feature and sprint race do you think your team's going to be strong this weekend? I'll start off with Sean.
I kind of hope
Start
it's
with
a feature
me.
race because it's worth more points, really.
Which race? I said.
The feature race.
You dare?
You said sprint.
Okay.
I don't even. If I'm being honest, I didn't actually hear half the question.
I said which out of the feature and sprint race do you think your team's going to be strongest at this weekend?
Oh, yeah, feature race because I think they're good at qualifying originally. So, yeah, that's about it.
Okay, Ollie.
Brilliant answer.
I don't really think we have any knowledge or insight to say at the moment. I mean, we've only had an hour-long test. I mean, after the first race, if you come back in a week's time and ask me the same question, I'll be able to give you an actual answer depending on how we did in the feature and sprint race. But we've only had an hour-long test. I think the question's a bit, you know, we can't really put a judgment on it at the moment. It's a little bit too early to say. We've only had an hour-long test.
Oh, how unprofessional. God, not answering the
Okay.
question.
That's quite a response.
Okay, I'll go to George next.
I have to say I do actually agree with Ollie on this one. Again, we don't really know apart from the test, apart from the test at Monza, what it's going to be like. So I will just wait and see what comes to the round. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Matt.
Well, I believe the feature race is the best shot to get some points. I mean, if we have a good qualifying, we'll be up there for the race, and if we get a podium, then we'll have a decent slot for the sprint race. But obviously, because we're high up in the feature race, we're going to do better from the sprint race.
You do know there's a qualifying sprint race, you know that.
Oh, that screwed up my answer then.
Is there?
Yes, of course. You can't just put reverse grids on the
And
skin.
yeah, I've just been described as unprofessional, eh, Matt?
Well,
I was going to say sprint race.
So what Matt's real answer is, Matt's real answer should have just been that the feature race is worth more points. He just hopes he does better in that one.
Yeah.
'Cause that's
Yeah.
all it is.
I genuinely thought that there was a
Matt's
reverse
answer should have actually been, I don't actually have a clue.
grid. Wow.
Oh,
No need to
Guys,
swear.
cut that out now, on you God's sake.
No need to swear,
It's
Mr.
an under 18
That's
show.
James.
What was the question again?
Out of the featuring sprint race, do you think your team's going to be the strongest out this weekend?
I don't know. We haven't done the race yet.
To the race.
Okay, Cameron.
This
The
was
feature
actually
race,
all-
because I think the feature race will be better for us because not many teams can keep up, obviously.
Oh, shut up, Cameron.
Keep up with what, Cameron?
You're crap.
Keep
Cameron.
up
Cameron's
with
just
our
trying
Netflix
to
engine.
refer to his hero.
Your Netflix engine, eh?
Yeah.
Your car's
Yes.
your car's a white brick with a red blob in the middle
It's
of it,
changed.
Cameron. You can't
It's
say
changed. You know, I heard some professional designer was brought in to make him a new livery. That's why.
anything
Yeah,
better than what
me,
that-
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.